Let's open the book on this. Today in Portland, tensions are up as environmental advocates push back on the city's investigation into Zenith Energy. I'm Leah.
And I'm Garrett.
Welcome to Laid Back Local, the news of the day with Leah and Garrett in Portland, Oregon.
All right, let's set the stage for this one. First up, environmental advocates here in Portland are rejecting the city's recent investigation into Zenith Energy, which is a Houston-based fossil fuel company that stores and moves oil products. The probe started after a city council resolution in March 2025 asked the city to look into whether Zenith broke its franchise agreement, which is basically the contract that lets a company use city property and sets the rules for that use. The city released a report in February 2026 saying Zenith was in compliance, but in April 2026, 8 environmental groups delivered a letter to Mayor Keith Wilson, that's Portland's current mayor, saying the investigation had an artificially narrowed scope and felt like the conclusion was decided before it started. They also flagged conflicts of interest, since city staff who already work on Zenith's permits and enforcement led the inquiry, which advocates say made it less independent. A private law firm, Cable Houston, was brought in to assist, but advocates claim the firm wasn't given access to key documents. One big allegation hanging over this: Zenith allegedly transported fossil fuels illegally at least 34 times over 3 years. If that's accurate, it raises the question of why those incidents weren't dug into more deeply.
That's a story worth telling. Why would an investigation skip over something as specific as 34 possible illegal transports? Why?
Advocates say the scope was too narrow, and the setup made it hard to scrutinize Zenith thoroughly. In plain terms, if your referees also help set the team's schedule, it gets tricky. The city's bottom line was compliance, but the groups want a broader, more independent review that looks at all potential violations, not just a slice. Big picture, this shows how hard it can be to ensure environmental rules are followed when the law, permits, and safety all overlap. That's something to chew on, huh?
Okay, let's move on. Next up, NW Metals, a scrapyard in North Portland, is facing new enforcement actions and fines from the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality. That's the state agency known as DEQ that regulates pollution. NW Metals has been on the radar since 2013 for environmental violations. A 5-alarm fire in 2018 burned for 36 hours and forced 145 residents to evacuate, and over the past decade, DEQ has issued more than $550,000 in fines. In November 2025, DEQ sent a notice of new enforcement actions, and here we are again with more penalties on the table. Despite legislative changes after that 2018 fire, the scrapyard continues to operate. The underlying issue, according to regulators and observers, is that enforcement can be slow and complicated. Fines don't automatically shut a business down. There are permits, appeals, and compliance plans to work through. Real talk. This highlights the gap between writing rules and actually making them stick day to day.
That kind of blew my mind. A fire burning for 36 hours is beyond intense. It's wild how that works out even after big fines. Why don't repeated fines stop the operation sooner?
Short answer: fines are one tool, not a shutdown switch. Regulators usually have to document violations, issue penalties, and give chances to correct problems before stronger steps, and companies can contest penalties. It's a process meant to be fair, but it can feel slow, especially for neighbors living with the impact. We've got layers here.
Let's keep it moving. The sudden closure of a Portland drug treatment center has left patients in crisis. Volunteers of America, Oregon, that's a nonprofit that runs social services, temporarily shut the Women's Residential Treatment Center in Northeast Portland. Nearly 50 women were told to leave, and some were in court-ordered programs. VOA said safety and medication management issues forced the pause, which means concerns about how prescriptions were handled and overall client safety inside the facility. Patients were given only a few days to find alternatives, and some people relapsed. There's legal uncertainty for those tied to the courts. VOA says the plan is to reopen after making improvements, but there's no date yet. This hits during the ongoing opioid crisis, when treatment beds are already scarce. In simple terms, the demand for help is high, and the supply of stable, well-run treatment slots is tight.
Truly heartbreaking. The lack of transparency around the decision is troubling. Why the sudden timing with so little notice when stability is the key to recovery?
From what's been shared, it sounds like VOA saw immediate risks they felt they couldn't sit on, but the exact details are still unclear. It's a difficult balance between fixing safety problems and not upending people's lives. I'm down for that long-term improvement. It's the short-term fallout that really stings.
Switching gears just a little. A new study from Portland State University finds rent assistance is the most requested support service among people experiencing homelessness here. The research, called the Pathways Study, and led by PSU's Homelessness Research and Action Collaborative, which is a university center focused on housing and policy, surveyed 541 people over 9 months. 98% said they want permanent housing, but many fear they can't keep it because of cost. Top needs include financial help like rent support, legal aid, and job-finding support. The study also noted that so-called involuntary displacements, often called sweeps, where camps are cleared and people have to move, are common. About 40% of those surveyed experienced at least one in the past 6 to 12 months. Researchers say the findings push back on stereotypes and point toward affordability as a central piece of the solution. In other words, when rents outpace incomes, keeping a roof is the hardest part.
That's a solid point. Those numbers are striking. It's clear people want housing and a path to keep it. Addressing the affordability side and the stability side together seems key if we want changes to really stick. On to the next thing. Portland plans bus priority lanes on 82nd Avenue to boost transit. TriMet, the regional transit agency that runs our buses and light rail, announced a roughly $350 million plan for 7 miles of BAT lanes. BAT stands for Business Access and Transit Lanes, which are special lanes that let buses glide past traffic while still allowing right turns into driveways for businesses. The idea is faster, more reliable trips on Line 72, the state's highest ridership bus line running along 82nd. There's a funding puzzle to solve. A $150 million federal grant depends on securing local matching dollars. Meanwhile, the Portland Bureau of Transportation, that's PBRT, is already working on safety upgrades. Remember, the city took control of 82nd from the Oregon Department of Transportation, ODOT, in 2022 to focus on local safety needs. If this transit project lands, it could set a template for other corridors around town.
That's pretty cool, right? 82nd has a tough safety record, and faster buses plus safer crossings could change the feel of the whole corridor. Quick question for you. Why does the federal grant require local matching funds?
Matching is how a lot of federal programs make sure the local community has skin in the game. In simple terms, DC chips in if the region steps up too. It helps stretch dollars and align priorities. If the money comes together, we could see a faster Line 72 and streets that feel less risky to cross. Love a good rabbit hole, but that's the gist.
And that's where we'll leave it for now.
Thanks for tuning in to Laid Back Local, the news of the day with Leah and Garrett in Portland, Oregon.
Have a great day and come back tomorrow for more updates.